Please rewind this cassette.
Alright guys, Pat here. I'm going to be reviewing episode 5 of season 2 of The Boys, We Gotta Go Now. I did like this episode quite a bit more than the previous one because mainly we got to spend more time with Butcher, more time than we've gotten to spend with Butcher throughout this entire season, and also just the camaraderie of the boys, in particular Mother's Milk, Huey, and Butcher being together for a large portion of this episode. So that made me happy. It was really fun to see the characters interacting. They seemed to have a goal again, and there was a lot of funny dialogue and really good scenes in this episode. So I'll talk about the things I liked real quick. I like the fake movie Dawn of the Seven that's being filmed by a Zack Snyder type, which is just very funny, and all of the scenes that are in the movie are great, with Queen Maeve being like, I'm gay, and she kisses the girl, and then how A-Train doesn't want to retire, and then having the just forced in shot of the three strong women get it done, which I'm assuming is sort of making fun of that scene in Avengers Endgame where all of the female characters pop out of nowhere to help Captain Marvel fly around with the Infinity Gauntlet. That was just really cringy. So that's great. I love that the show isn't PC at all. There's a lot of good moments here. Homelander accidentally kills a bystander when stopping a terrorist, and then he goes to talk to the people during a speech which seems to be run by AOC, and he has a fantasy which was in the preview of him lasering everybody, which part of me wishes they would almost commit to this and just make Homelander a full-on villain at this point. Yeah, so everything with him was great because now he realizes he needs Stormfront. She's showing him how to use social media, and there seems to be inklings of a romance starting early on in this episode. Also, we know that Starlight, who is now informed that Stormfront is Liberty and older than we thought, and a racist, is trying to investigate this while Stormfront's getting involved with her personal life. This all comes together in some really intense scenes between Stormfront and Starlight, and Homelander kind of coming in and out. Although I must say, Homelander feels a lot less intelligent this season, and his presence as a villain has been greatly diminished. I'm a lot less scared of Homelander now, and I'm also just less into the character at this point. I really like the actor, but I don't think it's as effective as it was in season 1. And even though there was a lot of good things in this episode, Butcher's dog, I fucking love. Everything with the dog was A+. Like, more of the dog, please. His aunt was really fun. Black Noir going to confront them. All of this I thought was building towards something. But where's the plot? There's almost no story at this point in the show. And not just that, there's no momentum in the plot. There's been these slow episodes, the last two especially. At the end of episode 3, it really felt like things were moving forward. And now I feel like we're just stagnant and having these character episodes, which are fine, but there's just not a pace to this like there was before. I don't feel like things are moving fast enough. And I just don't think enough stuff's happening. I mean, once again, no major characters died in this episode. It felt like we were building towards a real intense confrontation with Black Noir at the end, but even that just sort of wraps up easily. It's honestly very convenient. Butcher just is like, hey, I have some pictures of the kid Ryan, and I'll leak them to the public. And then Gus Fring gets on and asks him, how do I know if the pictures are real? And then Billy's like, well, you don't, but you got to trust me. And then Black Noir just leaves instead of killing anybody. I thought he was going to kill the dog at one point. I mean, I wouldn't want that. I'm just saying. So this is essentially what I said would happen last week, was that Butcher left the team after coming back to it. He goes to meet his wife, and now they were going to have to spin things around to get Butcher back on the team again and get focused on his goal. And that's all this episode really did, even though it was setting up these things like Vought was going to, get more serious with killing these guys off. I mean, they basically have these guys set up to kill them at this point. And now what? Is Vought not going to do anything because they think Butcher has pictures of Ryan? Where does this lead to? It just makes things seem too easy, honestly. I don't know why nobody died. It's not that I need the death. It just seems like, wow, characters are really... I mean, the plot armor, it's starting to do that bullshit late Game of Thrones season plot armor thing, and I do not dig it. All the dialogue with Huey, though, and Butcher, there was a lot better dialogue this episode. There was more Stormfront, who's just stealing the show at this point. I'm getting tired of characters I used to love. I don't know what the fuck they're doing with the Deep. I'm not digging him as much as I used to. Starlight, even in this episode, felt like she had less to do, even though they bring her mother back. I mean, yeah, I don't mind, once again, spending time with the characters and having slower episodes and getting kind of this focus between them. But you got to have some like major storyline going on within that. And what's the storyline this season? That Compound V got leaked and Stormfront's an old racist, and that's about where we're at. Even the thing going on with Frenchie and Kamika is pretty just nonsensical and not really that compelling and going in circles, where I don't even know why Frenchie's on the show anymore. Although I did like the scene with the guys talking about Hamilton, the musical, and how it was ridiculous that a white guy's playing out, that a Puerto Rican guy's playing Alexander Hamilton, and then that guy brings up that musical Evan something, which is really funny. That's the stuff that's really funny. That was funny dialogue. Everything with Stormfront was funny. Everything on the set of the movie and with the faux Zack Snyder was hilarious. All of that was really fun to watch. I mean, there's still a lot of entertainment. I was much more entertained by this episode than I was episode 4. Episode 4 I really thought was the most boring episode of the show. This wasn't a boring episode. I don't think a lot of major things happened, but it was a funny, cool, visually pleasing episode that had a lot of great satire and a lot of great, comedic beats and character beats. So this was a nice filler episode. Last week was like a generic filler episode. This was a good filler episode. This is the kind of filler that I like. And it did have a big wrap up in that Homelander and Stormfront are hooking up now, which we've been building towards for a while. And their fight sex scene was a lot of fun. She's just like, laser my tits. That's great. Everything with that, the floating with them fucking, that was a very creative visual and was very nice to see. And the end point with, Butcher at the end, we see that he's getting a stuffed animal and we don't know what it is. And now we realize, well, it's, yeah, like a dog toy that we find out his dog fucks. He has a fuck pig that he was playing with at some point, and he gives him a Homelander doll to fuck, and he's like, fuck it. And you start hearing it, fuck it. That's great. Okay, Butcher's dog fucking a Homelander dog toy, and Homelander floating with Stormfront, and she's like riding his dick. That's all the shit I watch this show for. And then, of course, you have Dream On, Come On, which seemed like a pretty cliche song to use. Not as fun, as creative as some of their other song choices. The soundtrack's usually pretty great on this show. But yeah, I thought they were gonna kill MM at some point. I thought that they would kill the ant. I thought that, like Black Noir, there's all that tension of him chasing Billy down and it doesn't go anywhere. And just beyond that, is it building towards a confrontation between Starlight and Stormfront? Stormfront says, you'll be useful for my plans, whatever her plans are. And it already seems like her storylines are revealed. I don't think there's any mystery to it anymore. I think we all know where this is going. I hope they have some surprises up their sleeve. I thought Eric Kripke was more clever than this as a showrunner, but right now this feels like a by the numbers television show. I feel the beats of the story and where it's going. I have a pretty good idea of where everything's going to go. I have a pretty good idea of what's going to happen to most of our main characters, and it's not that satisfying. And there's only 3 episodes left, and if they don't do some major things in episodes 6 and 7, I'm going to feel like I'm going to be tuned out by the time we get to the finale, that I won't even care. I think like they're saving everything for the finale, which I don't think is a good way to do the show. I think the show works best when a lot of things are happening continuously. By this point in season 1, so much had already happened, and I was so involved and tense with everything that now I'm wondering, like, yeah, these do just feel like we're just experiencing little episodic moments in this world. And yeah, I guess you could say it's about the public turning on the heroes more and their way becoming outdated, in particular Homelander, but it's just not enough for me. And even though there was a lot of funny moments in this episode, there was some good fight scenes, the movie within the show was really entertaining, and definitely Stormfront clearly being aggressive towards A-Train because he's black was very entertaining, and it definitely feels like A-Train is going to go against the Seven at some point. I still don't think this was a great episode, and I don't think it was a return to form. It was better than last week's episode. Yeah, maybe I would give this like a 7.5, an 8 out of 10 if I was being really positive. but I'm still just not in love where the show is at this point. I still think that it could be better, and I'm just enjoying watching the show now, but I'm not in love with the show like I used to be. But to give it credit, this was a very entertaining episode of television, and it had a lot of really nice, clever moments. So that alone elevates it. And every episode of the show has that. Last week it was the Homelander, kissing himself and trying to give himself a blowjob before killing Doppelganger, pretending to be him. And this week had way more moments like that. And I'm hoping that there's some payoff with the Queen Maeve thing. And I'm hoping there's payoff with everything with Starlight and Stormfront and Huey. And I hope they start to give these characters something to do instead of half of them feeling pointless. Like I said, there's just too many characters and we need to get rid of some. We need to kill off some of the leads. It's just at that point. I recommend Frenchie in particular. And Queen Maeve, I think, probably should go at this point as well. And even Homelander's starting to get a little bit iffy with me. I'm getting really worried about the show, guys. I'm not giving up on it, but every week isn't like solidifying it for me. Even if this was a better episode than I was expecting it to be, it also wasn't good enough to take me out of this fear that I'm having that the show's kind of going off the rails and it's never going to capture its original magic, which has happened with a lot of shows that I've loved in the past. I've experienced this many times before. Battlestar Galactica wasn't that long ago, folks. I don't know. Tell me what you think in the comments. Did you like this episode? Do you think the show is keeping up with its quality like it used to be? Do you like where it's going? I don't hate where everything's going. I don't hate everything. I still enjoy the show, but it's I don't know, it's just not doing enough for me. I don't know. I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling that huge attachment to it, and I don't feel like there's as much interesting things to talk about with this. In the first season, I was just sort of in awe of it. There was so much to talk about, and most of it was praise. Now, I'm not really wanting to criticize it, but I'm also sort of like, what am I supposed to attach myself to? I don't really care if Billy gets with his wife now. I don't care anymore. I don't really care about anyone's struggles or what they're going through anymore, their motivations. I don't care. I'm becoming very apathetic towards a lot of this, and the nihilism of the show, which worked before but had this humanity. This is reminding me more of how I felt when I read the comic book, which always shocks me when I see people say they like the comic so much more, because I always felt very detached from the comic book because of Enos's writing style. And that's how I feel with the show right now. Like, I admire it, I'm amused by it, but I'm very emotionally detached from it. And it's from a distance, which is how I felt with The Boys, the comic book, and now it's how I feel with the show. This reminds me much more of what it was like to read that than season one, which surprised me how it just added all these layers to it that I didn't find in the comic and made me care a lot more about the people at the center of it.